Okay, so this is chapter week number 4, and we're going to start with program number 1. A couple of concepts to go through here first. We are going to talk about, in this week, input and output from the screen, a couple of different methods of doing that, and a couple of different methods of converting the data that we get from that. And then we're going to get into some conditional statements, so using if statements and if else statements, and how do we use those in our programs, what they're used for. So remember, when we get data from the screen, we do not use that directly, because any data we do get from the screen comes in the form of a string. So we can't use a string if we're doing math or anything like that. We actually have to convert that string to a double or an integer or something like that first. So there's two different methods of doing that. One is the convert instruction we've used already. Another one is the parse instruction. I'll show you the difference between those two. And then we're going to look at as well the console write and the console write line methods and what the differences are between those two. So let's look at this program right here. Program number 1, this is what we're going to do. Now I already have this program pretty much written here, so you're not going to watch me type it all in, but we will go through a couple differences here of how this can run. Now, one thing you'll notice here, I have what appear to be comments in here. This is actually some more code right here that I entered in here and then just put the comment in front of it. This is what we call commenting out some code. So if you have code that you don't want to have active, you can just put the comment slashes in front of it. If I were to remove those, you see that actually becomes a line of working code now, the color changes of it. If you put the slashes in front of it, it turns green. That is now a comment. That does not get executed as a line of code. It just looks like a text comment in the program. So that is a way that you can disable a line of code in your program without deleting it. So it's still there. You can easily put it back in again, but now that will not execute. So I've got a couple extra lines in here, so I can enable one line, disable another one, and show you a couple different ways that things happen here. So let's look at the difference between, first of all, I guess let's look at a write versus a write line. So right now this program is, we'll just watch what happens here when we run it. So right now it says A equals, and you're going to put in a number for A, give that a 5. B is equal to 7, and that gives you 5 plus 7 equals 12. That's what this program does right now. So let's look at how this is running right now. So you'll see here we have console write. Now we've been using console write line as a method so far. So the difference between write and write line, write does not jump you down to the next line with your cursor. Write line actually jumps you down to the next line. So watch what I mean by that. So watch when we run this. See, we have A equals, and then the cursor is sitting there just after the equal sign. Okay, so I put in a 7. And then after I do that, it jumps down to the next line. Does B equals, and is looking for a number. I put a 6 in there. And then do that. Watch how that behaves versus if I were to change this to write line. Watch how this behaves differently. You'll see now A equals, but my cursor's down here. Instead of sitting beside the equal sign, it's down here. So if I say 6, so watch this compare to the next one. And then B equals, see how the cursor sits beside up here versus jumping down to the next line and waiting for the input there. So that's the difference between the write and the write line instruction. So the write line instruction moves your data entry point down to the next line. So it's just a little formatting difference there for how you input the data. Or basically, does it move the cursor for you or not? So that is the difference there. So that's the difference between right and right line. Now let's look at the difference between the parse and the convert. So they basically both do the exact same thing. They convert a string to a number. So it can either be a parse to an integer, parse to a double, anything like that. But the difference is what happens if you don't put data in there. The parse will give you an error. The convert will just use a 0 in the, it'll convert it, it'll take your non-entry as a 0. So let's watch this. Let's use the parse first. So basically these are both set as a parse right now. So int a, see this line here, that is now integer. A is going to be set with that parse instruction, B is going to be set with the parse instruction. So let's watch what happens where it says A is equal to, if I just hit enter without putting any data in there, watch what happens. It crashes my code. Okay? It says you're not allowed to put a nothing, null value in there. It doesn't like that. So let's comment that line out, bring this line in. So this is using the convert to int32 instruction instead, basically doing the exact same instruction, but this will allow you to put a null in there. So A is equal to, I'm just going to hit enter. Oh, it didn't like that. Okay, we're going to carry on here. We're going to do this part down here. So now we have, you can see down here, I have console write line, and then I have A concatenated with the text string space plus space, concatenated with variable B, concatenated with text string space equals space, concatenated with the sum of variables A and B. And what that gives us, when we do this, we say 6 plus 7 is 6 space plus space, variable B, space plus space equals space, the sum of A and B. That's what we get there. So that's what this line here is doing. There is another way to do that where you don't need to do all the quotations and concatenations and things like that. So let's look at this line up here. Let's put this line in instead. So see how we have these curly brackets here, and we have this set up with a 0, a 1, and a 2 set in here. This should actually be curly bracket 2. Now what this means is these are basically placeholders for the arguments I'm going to put here after these commas. So this 0 is going to be the very first argument, which is going to be variable A. This curly bracket here is going to be replaced by this argument here, which is variable B. And then this curly bracket here is going to be replaced by the third argument, which is variable A plus variable B. So this line is the exact same as this line. It's just written in an easier way. There's not as many concatenations and quotation marks and things like that in there. It's a better way to write this, and we will watch how this runs. It should give us the exact same result. So if we did 6 and 7, 6 plus 7 equals 13. Does the exact same thing. Okay, so that is that line there running for us. Now the other line they wanted to put in our code here, we wanted to repeat this line with a multiply. Very easy to do. And we're also going to say console write f equals and we're going to go curly bracket argument 0 multiplied by curly bracket argument 1 divided by curly bracket argument 2 equals curly bracket argument 3. We'll have it print out that, and then we need to put in what our arguments are. And our arguments are going to be A, B, F, A times B divided by F. That is our math there. So let's do this, and these should all be doubles. So we can have some nice decimal numbers as a result in there, because we have a division, so it's good to have a double in there whenever we have a division. So let's see this go. We got 4, we got 3. I got my 2 lines in there right. 4 plus 3 equals 7. 4 times 3 equals 12. F is going to be 5. 4 times 3 divided by 5 is equal to 2.4. That is correct. All right, so that is a good example of the parse versus the convert to integer 32. And then how to use the right versus the right line, and then how to use the curly brackets with the arguments to simplify your output expressions. Okay, so there we go. That is program number 1.